If I got your first internship with Matt O'Keefe and Matt Fraser, like CrossFit Games, Matt Fraser?
Yeah.
Okay, let's start there.
So
What's going on, Bobby Ryan? How you doing? Not the NHL player, just so that
No.
we clarify this right off the hop.
Sadly, yeah, I can give you my autograph, but it won't be worth that much money, at least
Maybe
not right
later.
now.
Yeah, you got to give yourself time.
So the first internship. So when I was 17, I broke my back at a stress fracture right in between the L4, L5 vertebrae in my lower back. And Matt Fraser actually had the same injury. So a coach turned me on to him because he came back and went on to win the CrossFit Games. So I followed his career for 3, 4, 5 years. And then last year I saw that he retired, and I saw the NIL changes that were going on, and I knew I kind of wanted to get into the brand marketing space, and I needed to learn about it. So I sent a blind email. I found his email online somewhere deep on Google, and didn't expect to get a response. But 2 days later, I got a response from Sammy Moniz, his girlfriend, fiance, who was like, yeah, like, we're going to put you in touch with Matt O'Keefe, and he'll do an interview with you. So I interviewed with him on the phone one day, and he's like, I don't know if Matt Fraser is going to bring anybody on for HWPO or Podium, the nutrition company he just launched, but come work for my company, which was Loud and Live Sports at the time. And 3 days later, I was at an event in Minneapolis putting on the Granite Games.
Wow. Okay, what a way to start episode 147 of the Athletes Podcast. That's a sick story. Okay, how'd you break your back skiing?
I would say I actually did it in a soccer game. I jumped up for a head ball when I was 16 or 17 and got hit and flipped over and landed just on it.
Okay.
I had to wear the plastic, I want to say scoliosis back protector, brace type thing for 6 months, which looked really good in high school when it sat right on my chest and pushed everything
you're probably
up.
picking up every girl.
Something like that.
Jeez, it would have been so frustrating going to school with a guy like that, just getting everyone. Dude, okay, holy Dinah. Break your back at 16, so high school, end of it, you're obviously playing a variety of sports. What is process afterwards, recovery? What did that look like?
So it was like I said, it was 6 months in the plastic back brace, and then it was a ton of rehab, a ton of core exercises, and a ton of strength and conditioning pieces. And I had to shift all my programming for a while. And then eventually they added it. I started to add back squatting back in and deadlifting and everything, and I'm able to do everything now, which is awesome, and I enjoy everything.
Wow.
But for a while it was a totally different programming, and I had to be really careful and listen to my body, because I'd go to start doing a movement, and if it didn't feel right, I would just stop it right then.
Yeah, makes sense. Not something that a lot of us actually tend to listen to our body. So probably a good skill to have.
And then you forget about it.
Yeah, I'm usually guilty of that nowadays, trying to push the limits.
Yeah, I would say I probably push limits in everything that I do, because I feel like those are the areas where I feel most alive. I mean, if you look at the sports that I do, I downhill ski race, I downhill mountain bike, and I just chase extremes everywhere. So it's finding the balance between the two, where it's that happy medium.
Yeah, and without injuring yourself severely. How'd you get into this? Was this from a young age in New York, just traveling around doing whatever?
Yeah, so I learned how to ride a bike before I was 3 years old, because both my older sisters could.
Okay.
And I would just wear an old ski helmet around constantly. That was a hand-me-down from my cousins. My parents, I would put it on and put on rain boots at 7 in the morning, and they would come off at 7 at night. But I fell in love with skiing because it was a family activity. So my mom, my dad, my 2 sisters, my brother, and I would all pile into the car and then head up to the mountains the hill in upstate New York. And we would bring peanut butter and jellies and hard-boiled eggs, and that's how I fell in love with skiing. And my older cousin ski raced, and that's how I got into it there. And eventually it just grew into the sport that I'm doing now.
Crazy that you were able to do that just at a young age, have that as your kind of sport of choice. You go to Boston College, you take 2 years off. I'm assuming a lot of that just recovery, repair, getting your body prepared for skiing.
Yeah, so it was actually a year and a half of postgraduate PG work, where I worked on Cape Cod in the summers on a bar, and then to pay for a ski season.
Yeah.
And then it would be traveling all over Switzerland, Austria, all over Canada and the US, training, racing, competing, trying to make the national team.
Favorite place that this sport has brought you?
Ooh, there's so many incredible places. My favorite place is British Columbia. The mountains are just different up there, up in the Banff area. And he didn't tell me to say that. That's actually true.
That's where I'm from, man. It's the best place on earth.
Yeah, the snow is different. The mountains are different. It's so pretty at night too, except in December when it's freaking cold.
Yeah.
We were in Lake Louise one year and it was -40.
Ooh, yeah, that's ugly. I was fortunate and like didn't realize it at the time, but I'm so grateful to have had that geography growing up. Like within an hour you could be skiing or surfing legitimately on Vancouver Island, and then everywhere in between there's mountains, there's hikes. Like we came here, did that hike yesterday,
Chautauqua.
There we go. I'm glad you said it. We did that yesterday. That was sick, but like, you know, that was my backyard for the first 17 years, 18 years growing up, right? Like you've probably been able to enjoy that since you've been here in Colorado.
Yeah, I would say like the outdoor playground has been like such a big part of my life. Like I grew up in the outside and then I tried to go to the city for a little bit. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. It's 2 hours to the mountains both ways. And then getting out here, it's been incredible. You can go hiking and biking and running and do all the outdoor activities and you still get access to the city life with Boulder and Denver right there.
City looks sick. Like we've been out the past couple of days. It's been a great place to come out. What's the school life, nightlife like here? Are you enjoying it? Your 5th year, you're not wearing a brace around. Like I feel like it's probably good times here, right?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, the easiest and most cliche way to describe Boulder is it's a movie. Like I had a friend come and visit, and he was like, "This is where you go to college. It's everything. The weather's beautiful. Like the school's incredible. I'm in the business school there studying towards finance and marketing. And I think it just got ranked in the top 20 or 25 school undergrads programs in the country.
No big deal.
Which is phenomenal. The ski team and the athletic facilities are absolutely incredible. It's arguably better than being on the national team with access to the facilities and the strength coaches and the nutrition and the fueling station and the ice bath and cold tubs and massage. Like it's incredible, the facilities that we have.
We were chatting with Hannah Schartz yesterday, and she was basically echoing the same thing. Like, she came from UCLA, you transferred from Boston. Like, those are some pretty phenomenal institutions as well, and it seems like CU's got most of them, if not competitive, if not better, like for the facilities that you guys have. It was phenomenal. We drove around yesterday. It looked sick. Like I'm still waiting on getting my hat. I got to go after this.
Oh, you should have said something. I would have grabbed one.
I can't ask too much. You already brought the yerba mate. It's got me buzzing right now. I got like 30 milligrams in me. It tastes good, man. Tell me about starting this, getting this going, the brand you guys have built with Birk.
Yeah, so my teammate on the ski team, Alex Berkner, who was actually the first person that I met at CU, his family's from Argentina. So he grew up drinking yerba mate, which is one of the oldest naturally caffeinated beverages in the world, along with coffee and tea. But it's the one that's super traditional to South America. So he would drink it with his abuela and his abuela, his grandparents down there. And then we got to school. Our trainings we leave the ski building by 5 in the morning. Okay. So we needed something to wake up in the morning. We were constantly like falling asleep in class in the afternoon. So he started making this the night before, and that's where the original recipe would come from. He would bring it up on the hill. We would use it for training, and it would boost our athletic performance both on the hill and in the classroom.
Dang. What's in it? Like I'm going through, I'm like, yeah, it's a coffee substitute, energy drink substitute. I'm all in favor of being healthier because there's a lot of crap out there that you can be putting in your body. So I'd rather put something natural. Like what's in it? Fueling our dreams. There we go.
Yeah. So it's got 6 natural ingredients: yerba mate, water, natural grapefruit extract, a little bit of cane sugar, and then 2 salts, which gave us FDA approval.
Okay. That's a big one down here in the States.
Oh yeah. They don't really care so much until you hit $500,000 in revenue. Okay. But as soon as you hit that threshold, then the FDA will come knocking and they'll start checking on your product. But we were able to get it right off the bat because our manufacturer down in Ecuador's facility was approved and knew people. So we were able to fast track that process, which was huge.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's sick. You got a new customer. I'm going to be trying it. It's awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing it along. So that was the goal, right?
All right, podcast over.
Yeah. So tell me about skiing, like chasing excellence, not perfection. We were talking earlier, I know you haven't necessarily had that performance you were looking for to get to that next level secured, but tell me about this process, what it's been like going from Boston, breaking your back before that. Like, you've been on quite the journey, man.
Yeah, it's been a journey, and I wouldn't change anything looking back at it now because it made me into the person and the athlete I am today, and it's so hard to see the progress that you've made in the short term, but when you look at it in the long term, it's crazy. But I think one of the things that's really, really difficult with that is like you have this idea that you're chasing perfection of where you want to go and the path is going to go straight up. But in reality, you like move up, move down, move up, break your back, move up, move down. And it's this incredible journey along the way. And when you're so focused on the end goal of like where you want to be and where the time you want to get there versus how you're going to get there and focusing on the process is a huge, huge shift that I'm still working on making now.
Yeah. It's so weird that I opened my phone to your message about that story about Matt Fraser, because I watched earlier today a story about the fact that he crossed that finish line after winning his first CrossFit Games, and he had to fake his emotions, like fake the feeling that he was excited about winning. I couldn't even believe it, because it's like that goal that he had been dreaming of his entire life of accomplishing, and then when you cross that finish line, it doesn't necessarily feel like anything.
It does and it doesn't. I feel like it depends on the state you're in moving into it. I would say last year I PR'd my back squat and clean the same day, and it was something that I've been working for years, and I did it and I hit it and I was like, okay, that doesn't, I didn't feel anything because I wasn't really happy with what was going on the rest of my life and I wasn't that excited about it. I walked out of the gym and I was like, okay, what's next? But then with skiing and like where I'm at right now, I would say it's been such a big shift, because when I've accomplished some stuff recently, like I finish it and I'm so excited. It's like every neuron in your body fires so aggressively for like 3 to 5 seconds, and you're like absolutely wired. And it's those moments where you feel the most alive, and trying to chase those moments is what I'm trying to do more of.
Yeah, I'm getting chills just hearing you talk about it. I'm assuming summiting that Mount Everest was probably one of those moments for you where those nerve endings were tingling.
Yeah, it was the most incredible, terrifying, hard, and painful, enjoyable experience of my entire life. There were so many emotions. It's like a roller coaster. It ended up taking 23 hours to complete. It was over 140 miles and climbed 29,032 feet on the bike. But throughout the process, there were certain times where you're thinking about the end goal again. And it's like, how the hell am I going to climb this mountain 13 more times or 12 more times? And then you just break it down and take it one more step at a time. And then you break it down even smaller, and it's like, okay, you have every rock memorized by this point. So you're like, okay, I know I need to get to there, and then it'll be a little bit easier. And just keep going. And then at a certain point, you hit this like endurance high or runner's high or emotional bliss state where everything fades away, and you have that higher level of clarity again. And you're able to go so much farther than you think you can. Like your mind is capable of so much more than what you can possibly conceive.
A little David Goggins in there. 40%, eh? It's like that blissful state.
But
touche. I love that. That was good.
My best friend's Canadian. I always give him shit.
From Kitchener?
Yeah.
Hey, I didn't realize it at the time. I got chirped about it when I went to Oregon 4 years ago working for the Corvallis Knights in the West Coast League. And I would say A, and like my name tag had the Canadian on it, just so that I was prefaced before anyone they knew this is what's happening, and he might say A. So I appreciate you calling me out on it. That's good. What else? Like you talk about that blissful state that you achieve. Did you say you had to do that mountain 13 times?
Yeah, so it's one of the most notorious climbs up Flagstaff or in Boulder, Flagstaff Mountain, and it's 5 miles and roughly 2,500 feet of vertical.
Okay.
And it gets up to the steepest grade is like 16.5% at one point, so it's pretty steep.
Yeah.
And it was 13 laps up that, which was in the beginning. It was the first lap was Dover, then the second lap, and it was kind of like 3 stages. The first 4 went pretty easily, relatively easily. The middle 4, the first 2 were okay. The next 2 were the hardest 2s. So 8 and 9 were the most difficult. I was cramping and everything, and then you kind of get over it. And I was riding at night. My old ski coach, the old CU coach, Richie Rokos, came out and was following me in his car. He rode a couple laps with me, and it was an incredible experience because I had different friends come in from around the area, and they helped me push through. But the last 2 laps were solo in the middle of the night.
Dude, I'm trying to think of what I do 13 times in a row, and I would be mind-numbingly bored at like the 5th time, and to have to do it 8 more times after that, and especially on a 16% incline. Like, what are you doing to fuel your body during that? You said 22 hours?
Yeah, so I kind of planned for it to take like 16 hours.
Okay.
And
nothing ever goes according to plan.
Yeah, and then I realized I forgot to account the amount of time I would need to take a break eating and drinking into that. So like the ride time was pretty close, but
those are important things to remember.
Yeah, for next time. No. But eating and drinking. So I met with the nutritionist at school beforehand, and she kind of helped me map out a plan with like how much sodium I needed to take, and then how many goos and whatever. But once I got on the bike, it was really difficult to that was almost the hardest thing about it, was force feeding myself, because I was sitting there and I didn't want to eat. Like my body was rejecting food. I got up to 117 at one point, and I couldn't eat at that point for like 2 hours, and I was just sitting there drinking a can of Coke. Like the classic old school cyclist hack was what I survived on.
Wow.
And then it was goos and snacks. Had some ProMix stuff, which is like a nutrition supplement company that was great.
Okay. How many goos did you take down?
I couldn't do goos after a little while. I did a couple of them, then it turned into energy chews.
Okay.
And then it was oatmeal with a little bit of collagen protein powder from ProMix, which is huge.
Yeah.
Because it's not that hard on the body, and then a little bit of cold pizza.
Wow. From the sink?
No, it wasn't the sink. It was Cosmos, the late night spot. I had a buddy go and pick up 2 cheese slices, extra large.
Nice.
Which I was given, it was fitting. It was like 10, 11 o'clock. So when they normally get consumed by college students.
Hey, you gotta, sometimes you need to fuel the body with whatever it's going to accept, right? And like at that point, obviously maybe some more whole foods would have been a great option, but you also need something quick and dirty to get the job done, right? How much sodium did you have to take? Because Emily Cole, the individual we had on a couple episodes ago for the pod, Duke Star, went into a self-induced coma from not having enough sodium in her body. Like, what were you taking pre-journey?
So I don't actually remember the numbers off the top of my head right now. I think it was somewhere between like 100 milligrams an hour. I can look that up afterwards.
Okay.
But I was basically drinking a bottle and a half of Scratch, which is like an electrolyte sugar sodium mix, an hour, like a bottle and a half, 2 hours a bottle with a bottle of water. And that was constantly, throughout the entire time. And then halfway through, my buddy rolled up and had a different flavor of Scratch. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you so much. Because I could not do another thing of the lemon lime Scratch. It was done. I'm never going to be able to drink that again.
Just scarred for life. That's unfortunate. Lemon lime Gatorade's good, though. That's my flavor go-to. What's yours?
I like orange.
Orange?
Yeah.
Okay. In all flavors?
Pretty much across the board, yeah.
Okay. Biking versus skiing, if there's one that you had to choose between, what would it be?
I mean, ski racing's the most incredible sport. When you're up there alone on the mountain, it's absolutely incredible. You're racing yourself for the most part. Like at least for myself, the biggest competitor is me. And that's one of the most interesting things about it, because you're up there, you're totally alone in the start gate. And in order to get to the bottom, in theory, it's so simple. You go from the top to the bottom faster than anyone else, but you're also there trying to trick yourself into going to that risky line. And being able to put it in the fall line, which is go basically as straight as you can and as fast as you can. And it's scary to do that because of the amount of risk that's involved into it. And you're up there trying to trick yourself into that mental state. And the people that are the best are the ones who are able to do it consistently at the flip of a switch. And that's the hardest thing about it, is because you're just trying to trick your mind and get yourself into that mental state that allows you to perform.
How do you get into that state? Do you have a routine? Do you try and what do you do?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, you have a routine. Everybody has a routine. It's actually something I'm still working on, especially this off season and everything, because I've tried a ton of different aspects of it. And then the hardest part is when things don't start going well, is you start to question everything and you start tweaking things. And I've definitely gone from being like super type A, like this is everything that I do. I put my left sock on, then my right sock, my right ski, then my left ski, like all the way down. And also just rolling up and doing absolutely nothing, just like rolling into the start gate 3 seconds before and just going. And I think it's really important to try and find that balance that works for you individually. And I'm somewhere more in the middle, absolutely, but I'm still working on finding that perfect balance. Yeah,
it's interesting. Sports are unique in that sense. I want to touch on that part about ski racing and the fact that it's an individual sport, but it's team. And if your team doesn't perform well, you're not winning a national championship. Can you explain the dynamic that's involved and what got you so excited about just even talking about it?
Yeah, so ski racing growing up has been an individual sport, and the only time that it's a team sport is when you go to college. And I am a huge fan of college skiing. It is like the most incredible experience. You meet your teammates who become a family, especially here at CU. It's absolutely incredible because there's a whole culture of it built into the team where some of my teammates' parents skied for the same coach we had when I got to school, so they shared the same coach.
Wow.
There's the same training exercises that they were doing, which was racing up. You said you hiked Chautauqua.
Mm-hmm.
So last weekend there was a team time trial where all the Nordic and all the Alpine go and race from the bottom of the top one weekend.
Okay.
You would go and mountain bike from over to Winter Park one weekend. You do a 115-mile road ride one weekend. And each weekend in the fall is built around one of these team traditions that's been there for, I don't know, 30 years.
Sick.
And it's kind of this instance of shared suffering in the fall that brings everyone together, both Alpine and Nordic, and generationally. And it all accumulates next weekend with skee ball, which is essentially the biggest party of the year because it brings back all the alumni, going back the entire generation to celebrate their past success. And it's a fundraiser for our seasons and everything. So it's how we're able to create future success.
Amazing.
And then the next day we go and get on snow.
Crazy. Well, we missed it. Sounds like we missed it by a week. Would have been fun. Next time. We'll plan ahead next time, tour. We were fortunate to get you on today. I appreciate your time coming in short notice. One of the other things that you were talking about is the fact that you have all of these other extracurricular activities outside of school, outside of sports. You said it earlier, but you say yes to everything. Is this something that was instilled from a young age? Parents, siblings? Where does that come from?
I would say a part of it comes from my dad, and he likes to joke that he has adult ADD because he sees opportunity everywhere he looks. And I would argue that I also do the same thing. And I love saying yes because it opens doors that you don't even know you're going to have down the road. It's definitely one thing where I'm working on is choosing what I say yes to a little bit more and saying no to things so that I can say yes to the things that really matter and getting those priorities in order. And it's definitely a balance too, because it's finding balance again. It's like what we do on skiing every day is like when we get on snow, you have to find your balance. And I've kind of started applying that to my life recently with like, how do I balance school and academics and training and starting a company with an area and family with an area that allows me to be fulfilled both like emotionally, spiritually, and perform at a high level. Yeah,
so true. I'm chasing the same goal, to say the least. It's interesting you bring up that balance. Alex Hormozy, a guy who I've brought up on the show in the past, he sounds like you know who he is. He was talking about morning routines and how, he doesn't want to be the guy that gets knocked off his roller coaster by one simple superstition that goes out of hand, or like that he can't put his sock on the right foot that morning, because that impacts his entire day. Like, you want to be the steady Eddie, the guy or gal that can be counted on no matter what, whether it's right sock or left sock first. So I thought that was an interesting point about finding that balance. And like, for you, what strategies have you used to say no to? Are you like thinking internally every time you get that opportunity light goes off? You're like, okay, is this a yes or no? What decisions are going into that?
I would say I definitely made... Basically, last season, I really struggled mentally with some stuff. There was like one day in February where I was struggling in racing, and I went and like didn't have a great first run or DNF'd. I don't remember exactly, but I went and sat by myself in the woods on the mountain. And it was kind of like a low point where I was like, okay, I need to make some changes. And then kind of from there is where this all started. And we got through to the off season, and I really gave myself a break for the first time, which I think I normally give myself like 2-3 weeks off in the off season and then get back to work. And this year I gave myself 6 weeks where I did things that I don't normally do. I like ate pizza, cheeseburgers, stayed up too late, did college for real for a while. Yeah. And my weight, like I was 205 in the spring, which was, I was just fat, like 17% body fat. But I also was the mental break that I needed. And then I was excited to start training again. Yeah. And kind of from that rest period, I was able to articulate some values, and like family's been really important to me. But if you look at the choices I've made over the past 5, 8, 10 years, like I really haven't been home that much. I was talking to my brother one day this summer, and he said to me, man, like I've barely seen you 10 days a year for the past 10 years. And I was like, whoa, I've got to make some changes because of how much I value family. So I spent more time at home this year than I have in the past 10 years. I prioritized time with my brother and everything, and I feel so much better now after having done that, and I'm really excited to see where that relationship goes moving forward.
Older or younger brother?
So my younger brother is 21, and then I have an older sister who's 25 and one who's 27. I'm 23.
Okay, look at that, a full nest. Interesting. I've got a younger brother also, and so I have a similar dynamic. I haven't been home a lot over the past probably 10 years also. 7, 8 years, but same thing, probably less than 2 weeks. So you're striking a chord with me. You're making a difference, educating, entertaining, inspiring the next generation of athletes. That's our goal here. When it comes to your sport, what you've learned throughout your time here at Colorado, or in Colorado, I should say, Boulder, what was that learning curve from high school to university like? Any changes that you would make or suggestions you'd give to that next gen?
I would say going back just in skiing in general, there's like a huge split between going to college and trying to make the national team. And this it's a huge debate within the skiing, like US skiing community. Some people are all for college and others are all against it.
Okay, let's get into it.
I'm a huge fan of college because it gives you the opportunity to get a college degree, like explore yourself. I have so many interests outside of sport that I wouldn't have had otherwise had I been solely focused on skiing. Would I have been a better skier had I solely focused on skiing for the past 6 years? Maybe, but I also think there's so many other aspects that go into high performance, like the mental state and everything else that you learn so much about, and how to manage your time and being in control of the controllables and letting everything else go. That college is such a great teaching platform, and you're able to learn so much about yourself that you don't have the same opportunity to do so. And given I'm right into college, I wasn't on the national team, somebody else can give a totally different perspective on that. That's just my personal take.
No, I share similar thoughts. I went through university. I would not trade those 4 years for anything. Looking back, it was a bit of a vacation, honestly. Like, you get into a full-time workload, life, family, all of the other extracurriculars that come along. It can get busy and it's tough. So take advantage of that time when you are in school. To your point, enjoy college for what it is. For those 6 weeks, I was way higher than 17% body fat at one point. So you're doing just fine, man. I'd say
since then I've lost 30 pounds.
I was gonna say you don't look like 205 anymore. So
no.
Maybe like 185, but like at a 12-10% body fat probably. I'm assuming.
Within like starting to train again, I lost 30 pounds. Part of it was training for the EVEREST. Part of it was taking care of my nutrition again and starting to cook, which is something that I love to do.
Okay.
And just controlling my diet and then just choosing what I wanted to spend my time and energy doing, and it was so easy once you make that decision. Like a conscious, consistent commitment is how you do anything. And it's so interesting because like with your diet and body shape, when you look at it in the short term, you don't see changes over time, but then you go through an 8, 12, 16 week period and you're like, holy shit, like this actually works.
It's the power of compounding, man. And like those minor daily changes have such an impact in the long run. And it's like, you only see it if you stick to it. And unfortunately, not everyone's able to stick to it, right? And I think that conscious effort, to your point, is the biggest unlock, because you might do it for a couple months, get into great shape, but you're going to have a rebound effect. I've suffered from that. Like, it's not fun when you just go super off the deep end in one aspect and don't think about all the other areas of your life that could play a factor, to your point, in that balance.
The most interesting thing on that to me is the fact that people are so much better at holding themselves accountable when someone else is there, when they're doing it for someone else. But if it's you and you say you're going to wake up at 6 a.m. or 6:30 in the morning every day and you're going to do this, this, and this, if it's just you sitting there, it's so easy to not do that. And in reality, like, holding yourself accountable is the only person that really matters. At the end of the day, like, if you're not going to do it for yourself, why are you really doing it? But it's such an interesting dilemma. Yeah.
I know you track via Strava for your distances. Do you have any other like apps or tools that you use as accountability partners?
So I had a Whoop for a while, which I liked, but then I was paying all this money and I was like, I'm a college student, right? Like I know Thursday night or Friday night, Saturday night, like I don't sleep as much as I should, or I had too many beers last night.
Yeah.
So I stopped paying for it. And I think the data tracking can be great, but for the most part, you know exactly what you need to be doing. It's like you should go to sleep and sleep 8 hours a night. I've actually been way better at that recently, just holding myself accountable to it.
Yeah.
But with the wearables and everything, it's like, yes, it helps make you accountable, but at the same time, like you already know what you should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, I don't know.
I have the Whoop strap. I've got the same thing. I'm not wearing it right now, but I know when I had a couple extra beers last night and that I'm not going to be feeling good tomorrow. I might have to take it easier in the weight room. But on the other hand, you're like, okay, like some days it could show me some interesting data, HRV, whatever it is. Unfortunately, I'm not at that point where I'm tracking it down to the science and like, 1 rep maxes, 3 rep maxes, percentages for dialing it in and out. But to your point, you get to know your body when you start paying attention to it. And when you notice the impact 8 hours of sleep can do, wearing blue light blocking glasses, like, are there any things that you do outside of sleeping 8 hours? What else, like, what's your favorite meal to cook now that you've started cooking?
Favorite meal to cook? I actually have a family cookbook that my mom made. So it's a binder with all the meals that we used to eat growing up.
You cooked for 3 people last night on Insta randomly. You did like an Insta contest, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm kind of pissed that I forgot to reply to that. We were on a hike. I didn't have data.
Yeah, so I walked out of class yesterday and I had an exam yesterday and I've been busy traveling a little bit. I was home for a wedding this past weekend. So I got back and I was like, you know what, I'm going to cook tonight. And I hate cooking for myself. I love to cook, but I hate cooking for myself.
Yeah.
I'd much rather do it with friends. So I threw up a picture or whatever. And I was like, first 5 people to respond, get dinner tonight. So my buddy and his girlfriend came over, a kid I had class with last year that I haven't seen since May, and one of my like roommates and everything. And it was so fun. We did some spatchcock chicken stuffed with butter and herbs, and then roasted vegetables, a little bit of homemade risotto, salad, and it was fun. We hung out for an hour, and it was just like a good time. It's those, I love the little moments, and I really try and celebrate more of those, just because like it's so easy to skip over those. But for me, I love dinner. Like growing up, like dinner was a family activity, and we'd sit around the table, and it was like the center of our household. So like trying to bring that to school with me, and like we had a conversation, I forget what it was about, or we had a couple conversations last night that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And like I went to bed thinking about different things in a different perspective. So it helps me be more creative.
I love that. Bobby, you're a man full of ideas, dude. I'm a fan. I appreciate you coming on, sharing your knowledge. Where can people like find you on social media so that they can learn more about what you're doing between Birk, your other extracurriculars, I'll call them, between academics, athletics? Like, I don't know, what else do you want to share with our audience since we got you here?
I would say just with the ideas piece, like ideas are so cheap, it's executing on them. So finding a way to hold yourself accountable and doing that, I would say, is the most important aspect of it. But you can follow Drink Birk online, check out our website, order some yerba mate. You can find me at Instagram, BobbyRyan3. I have a Twitter that I just kind of started recently, because I realized you're able to talk to people like people who are super hard to get in touch with, and they give their thoughts in real time, and they'll communicate with you just if you hit them with an @ button on Twitter. So
dang, that's why we're hammering Twitter. LinkedIn's a big one too. I love LinkedIn, great option. Yeah, she's laughing. Instagram, that's great. I appreciate your time like tremendously. I really do. The way we wrap up every episode is we ask our guests what their biggest piece of advice would be. You've already given some insight, so I want to open the floor to you. You're a man who's got a lot of ideas. You're executing on a ton of them.
Trying to,
and that's what matters. So is there one piece that you would like to leave the AP audience with outside of what you've already shared?
Sure. I would say that the biggest thing that's made a huge impact for me was making time consistently for journaling. So every morning I wake up and I write for 10, 15 minutes, and it helps me articulate the thoughts that are going around in my head that I don't even realize I have. And once I get them down on paper, it's so much clearer. I'm able to think better, but at the same time, I don't have to think about them anymore, and it just helps me focus at a higher level. And for me, it's journaling. I've tried meditating and different things, so I'd say find what works for you and just stick to it consistently, because it makes a difference in the long term.
I love that. Matthew McConaughey, I love it. Green light.
Hell yeah. Green lights.